In this video, I want to take you through the installation of a square end clip lock drain. Now I'm using a 1200 former here. They do come in different sizes, and you can also tile them in mosaics, which is really easy. But I'm using a large format tile, which is a little bit more ambitious, but I think it looks really good. But I'm going to take you through the whole process from start to finish. Now, the job that I want to do here is to fit a square end clip lock drain into this wet room former. And there was a time when if you did a job like this, you'd be hunting around for all the different components you needed. But Abacus has now produced all these things in kit form, which means that you don't have to hunt around. Everything you need is in the box, in the kit, and you're ready to go. So I know I need a 1200 tray there, and I also need some flooring to complete the job. And here they've got a flooring kit, so just select the size of room you want, and you can even go to a wall kit if you want to do the wall as well. So it just makes the whole selection process a lot simpler. So here we've got all the bits we need to do the job, and also the instructions, and there's also a little bit of blue polystyrene. Don't chuck that away thinking that is part of the packaging, because it is actually the tile guide. What we do is we get a marker pen and we draw in a line from the corner of the tile guide to the corner of the tray. So 4 lines, and that gives us the cut lines for the tiles. If you're using a large tile rather than mosaics, it's very important that you follow that cut line with your tiles. That way you won't go wrong. But you've got the instructions, you've got the guide, and you just got to make sure of that detail before you start cutting any tiles. Now, it's very important when you're doing this that you don't stand on that tray. Whatever you do, do not walk on the tray. Now, I just want to mark out where the waste is going to go, and every plumber knows that you're not always lucky. Sometimes when you go to do this, you find the joist is right in the way. And of course, if you're using a shower tray, sometimes there's nothing much you can do about that, but you don't want to be cutting through that joist. And what you can do in this case is, if you did find there was a joist in the way there, you can simply move the former across to miss the joist. And then this gap here, you put back a piece of your flooring material, and then with a bit of adhesive on the top and that piece in there, we can continue to fall all the way into the tray and continue the tiling right to the edge. So it's really versatile. There's always a way round, and there's never any need to go cutting through that joist and weakening it. Now, you'll notice that I've made a round hole, but here we've got a square, and one thing I do know is a square won't fit into a round. We need to cut out to accommodate this edge of this square inside that plywood, because the last thing we want is that tray sitting up, and I have seen examples of people doing that. So here's my tip: just take our tile guide, put it on the edge, mark up. And that, when we join up, will give us a square cutout, and it's important that that isn't any more than 180 millimeters wide. So that's perfect, just about 170. I'm going to cut inside that line, and that will accommodate that square in there. But there is a piece of reinforcing inside that tray, a bit of steel reinforcing all the way around the edge to strengthen that. So that's an important feature. Do. So what we've got here is a high capacity waist, and if we're using the 2-inch connection on it, it will take 60 litres a minute, which is some power shower. But even if we reduce it down to 1.5 inches with a reducing bush which is supplied, that's still going to give us 45 litres a minute, which is a lot of water. And the great thing is it's all solvent welded, so there's no mechanical connections there to leak. And of course, if you use that cleaner, make sure you do a good job on that solvent weld. You're never going to have any problems. Now, every plumber's got their own way of working, and what I like to do is make all the connections inside. I never make a connection outside on the waist, and leave myself a good bit of play on that pipe so that I can move it up or down. And that's important, because when you put this trap in, you need to have that level with the underside of the form of the tray so that you can do that clicking up into position, that click lock. And if you have it tight and it's angled down, you'll never get that click into position. So make sure that you've got enough room to bring that up hard against the underside of the tray, perfectly level. Now with the tray in position, I can get that click lock trap up into position. The secret is to use this silicone that they supply, not washing up liquid, proper silicone. That's silicone lubricant, by the way, not silicone sealant, which is included in the kit. Make sure that you've given it a nice good coating, and then when you pull it up into place, we're listening for that click. We want to hear it engage all round. And that's it, make sure it's nice and firm in there. You can see it's a really good seal. And just to make sure that this tray stays in contact with the adhesive, I'm going to lay some weights on top of it just until it sets. Now at some point in most bathrooms and shower rooms, you're going to want to tile onto a wooden floor. A much better way of doing it is to use Elements board bedded down with their special non-shrinking adhesive straight onto the floorboard. Now Abacus recommends that in addition to the adhesive, you screw the boards down. You can do this with their plate washers, but use 25mm screws to avoid any damage to pipes or cables. And also cover the joints with their self-adhesive alkali resistant scrim. So now we've reached a point in this wet room where we're ready to do the tiling, but I just want to emphasize that everything you see here comes from one of 3 kits. You've got the former in one kit, you've got the floorboards in another kit, and in the third kit you've got the wall boards. And really that's the beauty of this system. Rather than having to fish around in catalogues and look for components and make it up as you go along like we used to with wet rooms, it's all there, it's a system, it's made to work together and give you 100% success. So now, as you can see, we've got all the tiling and the grouting done, and I'd love to claim credit for this, but I'm a plumber, not a tiler, and I can do a bit of tiling, but if you want a first-class job, get somebody in who's used to doing this, because it really does make the job if you get this bit right, whether it's doing it with mosaics or large format tiles. But now, this is the bit I can do. I'm going to remove this tiling guide and reassemble the trap and put in the hair guard in there and put the cover on. And when you do this, you don't need any silicone. You do see people applying silicone around the edge and everything else, but in this case, it's not necessary because all that water will find its way into that trap. It's designed to do that. And even if you had a crack in the grout line at some time in the future and water found its way under the tiles, it would still find its way into the drain. Unlike some other systems where that would be creating rot underneath, this is designed as a kind of belt and braces measure. You've got those 2 levels of waterproofing in it. So that's why I would say if you're doing a wet room, use the kit, use the components that are made to work together, and that way you won't have any callbacks. So when you're assembling the trap, you put in the cup, and then this is where the seal's made on this O-ring. So make sure that that is just located properly in there. That's fine. And then the hair trap goes in, and then finally the stainless steel grid. And as well as the standard grid, there's also the option of this designer grid, which is a heavy duty, solid bit of stainless steel that screws down into place.